Okay. So once again, I'm Nithin Julka, product manager at LinkedIn, and super excited to talk about personal productivity. This is a topic I've been passionate about for over 10 years, and many of the people here who know me might not realize this, but I used to be one of the most disorganized people ever. So I had my email inbox was completely out of control. I had piles of paper everywhere. I'd be late to meetings. I'd miss commitments. And so I got really obsessed with this topic about like, how do I get better and more organized about it? And just started reading everything I could about it, like productivity Zen and 43 folders, inbox zero, 4 hour work week. Like I could go on and on. And Getting Things Done was one of my favorites. Cal Newport was one of my favorites, and developed the system and the principles that I'm going to share with you today. So a few housekeeping things. Look at my notes here. I have around like 20 to 30 minutes of material. So I will be going through that and then taking questions at the end, whatever anyone has. There is a Slido. So hopefully Kate is in the chat. And I think the passcode is productivity, and she'll paste the link in the chat. Would love to hear the questions in the Slido. And other than that, oh yeah, I'll be recording the session. You probably already saw this, so we can share this material with others. So finally, this topic is really important to me, especially during these times. Like this presentation, I was expecting 20, 30 people might sign up for. I think I saw over 400 registrants, over 100 people on the line right now. So I think part of it is with the pandemic and shelter in place, this idea of like, how do I get organized? How do I manage the overwhelm in the world and our own lives is critically important, and something that I'm interested in helping as many people. I'd also say that this is a lifelong journey. I've been obsessed with personal productivity for 10 plus years, and it remains a daily challenge. Like every day, this is very hard for me, and I'm like obsessed with this topic. So at least I would say you're not alone. Just treat this as, if wherever you are in the journey, a starting point, a midpoint, but it's kind of a lifelong journey for improving your own personal effectiveness and productivity. So with that said, let's get started. I'd like to start with a poll. Maybe each of you can share, and let's see if this works. Hopefully that loaded, but would love to hear what are some of the personal productivity challenges that you're facing. And if you want to share in the poll, that would be great. But also, if you want to share in the chat, that would be great as well. So that you can each share with each other about what are some of the challenges. So let's look at this. Oh, it looks like we're doing pretty good on email. It's the lowest, but distraction is coming up really high. Multitasking and information overload are around the same. And 80% of the folks have voted, so that's cool. So it looks like distraction is the leading one, and then multitasking and information overload are like second and third, and email sounds like people feel that they are 20% of you want some help, but most of you are on top of it. So that's great. Thank you for sharing your vote. These and distractions the winner. Share, so I can click share results. Interesting. So yeah, those are the ones that I commonly hear. Information overload, so much is coming in. It's really hard to handle the volume. Multitasking, which I think is very related to getting distracted. I know being distracted was the winner here. So I'm going to get into some of that more in depth in the session. Email is a big challenge for me. It sounds like it's a big challenge for at least 20% of you. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. What's most important to me related to personal productivity is that it causes stress. And so I don't like to feel stressed, but I know when I'm not on top of what's going on in my life, like I feel like it just creates stress in the day, stress in the night. And that's something that I want to help reduce for everyone. So if it was a smaller group, I would say, okay, what's your personal productivity philosophy, and go person by person. But I'm going to just skip to the punchline here and go with mine. So if I were to summarize my entire presentation and everything that I've been trying to figure out over the last 10 years about personal productivity, this would be my answer. My goal is to get everything out of my head and into my trusted systems. That's it. Like, that to me is personal productivity. It's getting it out of my head and into my trusted systems. I don't want to rely on my brain for anything.
What kind of trust systems are you talking about, Nitin, if may ask?
I did not plant that question, but the natural question to come out after that is, what are your trusted systems?
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into that. Today, we are going to discuss productivity systems, which I will get more in depth in. It's actually only one slide. And then I'm going to go into some tactics, the ways that I implement this system as it relates to prioritization, scope management, responsiveness, and meetings. So let's get into this. One caveat, another word of caution before we get started. I think it's important to remind ourselves that strengths have corresponding weaknesses. I've been obsessed with personal productivity. I think it's wonderful. It's really benefited my life personally, but I've seen super successful people not follow these principles. And as I said, strengths can sometimes have corresponding weaknesses. I would say almost like an over focus on productivity. Maybe it comes at the expense of brainstorming. Maybe it comes at the expense of creativity, or you're following some thread and you want to just see where it goes, but you don't know where it's going to go before. And there's a lot of benefits to thinking just about the two sides of strengths and weaknesses. And so I just want to put that caveat that you can still be very successful in life and everything and not follow like the principles I'm laying out here. So let's get into it. What are the systems? The systems to me don't matter as much. Like, what I'm going to share today is the way that I do it, but everyone is going to have the systems that work best for them, their context, what they're doing from, at work and in life. But these are the ones that I use, and they're very, very basic. Everybody has access to it. I'm going to voice over very quickly how I think about each of these. So the calendar, to me, the most important critical productivity tool in my life is my calendar. This is truth to me. This is, if you've read like Andy Grove's High Output Management, he's like the former CEO of Intuit, and he writes about using your calendar as a production planning tool. And that's really the way I think about it. So if my calendar says that I need to go to a meeting, I arrive in that meeting. When it says that meeting's done, I'm done thinking about it. I leave at that time. If I need to have some time that I just want to like think about a task or think about an email or write a strategy, it's not going to be on some task list. It's going to be scheduled in my calendar so that I know exactly how much my capacity is at any given moment. And I'm only spending time on things I have capacity for. So that's like the way I think about the calendar. For task management, I'm very reliable on email. So I don't have, I've tried Asana, I've used Jira, I've used, Wunderlist and, a few of these other ones. But for me, from a personal task management standpoint, I'm on top of my email. So if I have something to do, I'll email it to myself. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. But if it's anything that takes time to do, like I actually need to allocate my time against it, I'd much rather put it against a calendar segment of my time rather than some like endless task list that I'll never get to the bottom of. And then for information capture, I think this is also really critical because so much information is coming in. How do you manage that, synthesize it, process it? I take notes, and I'm going to go deeper on how I think about note taking. I would say the one sort of insight for all of you folks to take away to consider, at least the way I think of it, is I'm not separating my to-do list from the time it's going to take for me to do that task. And I'm gonna share this presentation at the end. Anyone can access it, but Cal Newport's one of my favorite authors and thinker. That his book, he wrote like Deep Work and So Good They Can't Ignore You. He has a new book coming out now. We are like friends online, and he actually wrote this post about me called Beyond To-Do List, and where he goes deeper into this topic, like by scheduling each obligation, I'm comfortable with the reality of how much time each item will take, and then where those mental cycles will come from. So he kind of did a nice little post about this concept. Another thing that I mentioned earlier is I'm trying to get everything out of my head and fully focus and be present in that moment. And so to me, that's why I turn off everything. So I do not like I try to avoid synchronous communications. This might be controversial in like working at a technology company, speaking to a bunch of technology leaders, most likely, although I'm sure there are others in other industries, but I literally turn off Microsoft Teams, turn off Slack. I don't even have email on my phone. I don't have any of that on my phone. So the whole idea here is when I am in a meeting, when I'm doing email, I want to be fully present, fully focused, and not have anything interrupting my brain. So Slack, I turn off all notifications, all dings, all noises, so that I can be fully present and focused in that moment. And then on note taking, Tim Ferriss, over 10 years ago, maybe it was even 12 or 13 years ago, he wrote this post where one of the excerpts was, I take notes like some people take drugs. And I love that quote, because the idea here being note taking is one of the best ways of converting excessive information into precise action and follow-up. So now let's get into the tactics. And the four that I'm going to go deeper into, and I'm going to briefly summarize them now, and then I'll go deeper in the subsequent slides. For personal productivity, in my view, prioritization is one of the most critical things. Productivity Zen, Leo Babauta he's written about this concept. He calls it MIT. That's your most important task. So that is your number one most important task. I'm going to get into that, but I would say from a personal standpoint, I'll sometimes set an MIT for a day. So I'll try to get one thing done. Today it's this presentation, like one thing done, or for a week or a quarter even. What is the one thing, but you absolutely want to do it in the best way that you can. Scope management. What this is about, and what I often see is so much information is coming in, you kind of need to manage the scope of what's coming in. And that's a way to not be overwhelmed about everything that's coming in. In my experience, if someone is like getting overwhelmed, almost certainly they've signed up for too much. And this is where prioritization, scope management can become so important. Next is responsiveness. I think it's very important, especially when you're in a work context, to be consistent and following through and responsive. And that just helps create positive feedback loops and trust with everyone you're collaborating with. Again, at some point, responding to every email doesn't make sense. Like Tim Ferriss is like famous for like, I don't look at email. And I think we spend a lot of time in meetings. So I'm going to get a little deeper into how I think about managing meetings. How is this going so far? Even if people want to share in the chat what they think, and Kate, if you want to voice over anything just to give me a little bit of feedback as we're going, it would be great. Or even if you want to share in the chat.
I think there's some great activity going on in the chat. We've got some folks saying this is amazing. This is great to see so many folks online. So I think you're building steam side, keep going, and we'll take other questions as they come in.
And just as a reminder, as the questions come up, please add them to the Slido. I would be happy to answer all of them. And Kate, feel free to interrupt me even through the presentation if you think like, hey, this is a good time to even take one question from the, because I think being interactive would be nice if it's possible, but I get that it might be hard with 144 people. So, okay, let's keep going. So I mentioned prioritization. I literally will only aim to achieve one thing a day, but I will really invest and do everything I can to make sure that one thing gets done. Wake up in the morning, focus on that one thing before anyone wakes up, focus as much as I can, and then finish it. And anything that I do the rest of the day, I can coast, because I decided this was the one most important thing that I needed to get done, and I feel good about it. And I would almost say, think about what's your A+++ priority, focus on that, and just say no to everything else. A couple other tricks, it's like, well, this is important, but I don't know, I don't want to do it now, but I know it's going to be important in the future. What do I do with something like that? And so one of the tricks that I use is something I call a someday list. The idea here is, I might want to travel to Hawaii at some point, so maybe I could create, what are all the places I want to travel to? I'll create a Google Doc, and maybe once a month, I'll have a reminder to be like, let me just think about the things I want to, you're muted, Kate, if you're talking, but okay. Maybe one day I want to visit, I'll just do a recurring invite for my calendar to say like, okay, let me think about this once a month. And there've been times I've been tweaking it. Like, this is something I want to think about once a year, once every 6 months. And so that's a way that if I don't know where it belongs, I put it there. But if I keep every time it comes up, I ignore it, then it's like, okay, it was nice in theory, but I'm just going to take that off my list. And I also mentioned just turning off every pop-up, buzzer, notification. Like, I just turn everything off so that I can be fully present and focused. Another thing about prioritization is scheduling your day. So what I've found, especially when you're working in cross-functional teams and a lot's going on, you'll have people who are there's some cross-functional challenging problem that comes up that needs your attention that day that it comes up, but you're scheduled back to back the whole day, or you have so much going on, you can't even deal with this emerging priority that just came up. And so what I aspire to, I don't always live up to, but what I aspire to is to keep 50% of my calendar just completely open. So that the idea there is whatever the priorities that come up that day, I'm available. I have the capacity in my, so it's almost like one part of the day, what's my A+++ priority? Maybe what are some meetings I need to do? And then the rest of it can be open so that, of course, I can keep working on other projects, but then also I can be ready to work on whatever might come up that day. And oftentimes people will be like, okay, what's your calendar? And I like to go to bed early. So I'll go to sleep in, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at the late, and then I will wake up early, get my deep work done right in the morning before anyone wakes up, and mostly coast the rest of the day. Kate?
Well, we've got a great question here is, how do you conserve time on your calendar for something like this? It feels great to be able to hold that time for yourself, but how do you do it? And how do you prioritize what makes it above or below the line? And this question is from Sumit, so thanks for the question, Sumit.
Awesome, thank you. So this is it's roughly my schedule. It's adjusted a little bit. Like now I end my day at 3:30 p.m. these days, take care of kids. And but I will go to bed early. So that's one hack. If I'm going to bed by between 9 and 10 o'clock, then I can wake up between 4 and 5, no problem. And then I will get my deep work done before anyone wakes up. And then I think the other question was like, how do I decide what's above the line, below the line? So that's very, very, very difficult. What I would suggest doing is writing down a list of everything that you have to do, and then do your best to prioritize it, and like see what's at the number one top of that list, most critical thing, and then cross off everything else. So it's like whatever else, like it's like that's not on your list that day. If you're like, oh, but these 4 things are really important, then I would chat with your manager if it's a work context, or chat with your partner or whoever in your family if it's a family context, and something like, oh my gosh, I have this strategy work, I have this operational work, and I have this like hiring thing I need to do. Which one? And I only have a day, I only have 8 hours or whatever time you have. Which one's the most important? So you can actually like, what I will frequently do is try to come up with my list. And if I have questions about what is that priority, then I'll just challenge it with the most thoughtful people I can find to help me figure that out. There's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio, where he writes about like one of the best ways to make decisions is find the most thoughtful people you can to challenge you, and then come up with that. So it's like you don't know what to prioritize, like find people to help you figure it out.
One of the other questions that we received, what's your point of view on how much deep work people should be setting aside daily or weekly for that matter? And what's realistic?
I think that really depends on the role and the job and how it's organized and the organization. Like if you're in customer support, you're like responding to emails and like taking phone calls or whatever. Like that's like an always on. Like that's you probably need to do training on certain time to figure it out, and then but mostly it's like you're responding to customers all day. That's like I don't know if that's as much deep work, depending on the complexity of the problem. But like I'm a product lead, and I do think it's important to think, to have space and time to think. At least that's what I would suggest. And so I in my world, I do think a good couple hours a day is required. If you're a writer, it might be more, but I've read that like even more than 4 hours of deep work, it's like not even possible. Like when I'm talking about deep work, I'm saying like really, really focusing as much as you can. And I think Elon Musk has this quote, like until his brain hurts, like that type of focus. I see someone raising their hand. What I'd suggest is feel free to add your questions to the Slido if you have any. And then I'm asking, because there are 140 plus people, I'm asking Kate, one of my colleagues, to try to orchestrate the questions and stuff.
Excellent. Yes. And I'm also taking questions from the chat as well and moving them over to Slido. So either channel is A-okay. So keep submitting those questions, but you're doing well for now, Nathan, if you want to keep going.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. All right. Oh, I should talk about speculative meetings. So I genuinely try to help every single person who reaches out to me. Like there are people who I've never met before who have like reached out to me cold, and I will almost take everyone's call. But those are costly from like a time standpoint. And so what I have done personally is try to rate limit the number of speculative meetings I might take in a week. So maybe like, for example, I'll take one speculative meeting a week or one every other week during a fixed time slot, so that it doesn't become like an interrupt on my time and my days. It's more like 5 p.m. on Tuesdays is my speculative meeting slot. And so sometimes people have reached out and it's like, yeah, I can schedule time 3 months from now. This is the problem. So like I'm literally rate limiting. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about Clubhouse is that I want to help as many people as I can, but I only have so much time. So now I'm doing those one-on-one meetings, then if I move those over to Clubhouse, I can do the same meetings and hopefully maybe help more people at the same time. So Cal Newport talks about the value of hard focus. I love this quote where he would just systematically increase the amount of time. He would like force himself to work continuously without needing a break to seek unrelated stimulation. So it's like training your brain to focus for longer and longer periods of time without being like, oh, let me check my email. Let me check Slack. Let me check IM. Let me just, oh, I got to do it. So I love that idea that you can like train yourself to like almost be like this athlete of focus. Cal Newport's amazing, by the way. He's written like several bestsellers. He's like a computer science professor, books, blogs, and he has kids and a family, and he works 8 hours a day. And he's written his systems about how he does all of it. Okay, scope management. I would say it's really critical to not let others change your priorities. So you know what your priorities are, and I would literally just say no to everything else. So a lot of times people are making asks, and I think it's important to be responsive to everyone, but the response doesn't have to be yes. The response can be, this is not a priority at this time, and I appreciate you sharing. Like I might revisit that if I have the time, or I'll look at it next quarter. I'll give you an ETA by this age, but you know, I have a little caveat. Unless you're an executive, if you're an executive, you get to reset anyone's priorities. So, and again, I think Cal Newport quoted this one, which like treat your mind like a private garden. And the idea here being just being really careful with what you allow to introduce into your mind. What's allowed to get in, because you want to make sure that those are like the most important, critical, impactful things. And I'm going to share this. So, and I love this other system. Again, Cal Newport's written about this. And the idea here is fixed schedule productivity. And to me, especially during work from home and shelter in place and the pandemic, to me, this is one of the most important principles. So I think everybody is different in terms of how much do they want to work? How much do they want to work out? Do you want to meditate? How much time you want to spend with your family? How much time do you know, if it's spirituality or like all those different things that are important in your life? I would just say there's a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen that's pretty good about this topic. But the idea here is I would suggest you decide your life principles and what's important to you. I want to work about 8.5 hours a day, 9.5, whatever that is. I want to spend 4 hours a day with family. I want to read 2 hours a day, like whatever those are. And don't violate them. So for me, it's like I am with my kids from 3:30 p.m. until 5 p.m. every single day, from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every single day. And you know, I don't like to work after 8 p.m. You know, and I spend dinner with the kids every day. So like those are just my, and I don't like to work on weekends when the kids are awake. So it's like those are my principles, and like. People can like very senior people can call meetings or do whatever. And like, for the most part, I am just not going to violate, but my default is those are my life principles. That's what I want to do. And nothing is going to interrupt that, like, except in a rare instance, like say once a month or something, like I won't violate it. And so how do you do that? How do you actually, and that's what I've been talking about, which is like, dramatically cut back on the number of projects you're working on, ruthlessly cull the inefficient habits from your schedule, risk mildly annoying or upsetting some people. Like that's going to be, because people are going to always want more from your time, but you only have so much capacity. So I'd say, you know what, I'm sorry, these are my priorities, and I just don't have the capacity for that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's actually something admirable about being so clear on your priorities that you might be mildly annoying, like some of the people in your life who are around you and are making asks of you. So I know those were the key topics around distract. So I know email was like it was 20% of the folks who are interested in email, but so maybe I'll go, I think we have until 10 and I want to leave enough time for Q&A too. But I'll keep going. Kate, let me know if there are any other burning questions or things where I can be helpful to folks.
We've got lots of discussion-based topics, so perhaps you'd finish up with the pre-prepared content so we can dive into some of these discussion-worthy ones.
I'm gonna do my best to wrap in 5 minutes. I have no idea how many more slides I have left, but I like the interaction, so I'm gonna just try to wrap it up. For email, there's like an hour-and-a-half of video called Inbox Zero video that you can Google online, and you can see someone who like really geeked out on inbox management. But my general approach is like, get my email down to 0 each day. Only touch an email once. That's actually really important. So I don't like the mental overhead of skimming email. I literally don't have email on my phone, work email on my phone. I don't. And so my problem with skimming is like, it takes a mental cycle. I have to read, I have to understand it. And then I don't have the time to respond to it. And then it's like, I have to read and digest it again. So when it's my email time, it's literally in my calendar, like that type of focus where like I am fully focused. I might be on email for like 1-2 hours straight, where I'm going one at a time. I'm processing each one fully, and then archiving it, getting it down to 0. And then sometimes I'll hit an email that's like, wow, this is going to take 1 hour and need to organize across like 5 different people just to respond to it. And then I'll literally like call the meetings to schedule it, email the person, say, hey, can you help me respond to it? Maybe set an expectation saying like, hey, thank you for your email. I'll get back to you, on this. So that I really process one, and then scheduling time for it. And I don't like to multitask. I'd really encourage unsubscribing, deleting mailing lists, unsubscribing, canceling, getting off distribution lists, setting up auto filters, everything you can so that the emails coming in are the most important. And then a weekly review is a really solid one where if you can't find yourself getting down to 0 each week, then like just do like 4 hours every week. That like then you bring it down. That the worst scenario could be 1 week delayed. Kate?
So maybe you could spend a little bit of time here, because there is some hot debate over email, or a need actually to hear a little bit more about your thoughts in terms of, how you categorize and how you're ensuring that you're getting down to that inbox 0 at the end of the week, and things that you've needed to do to make that happen. Maybe some more details around how that happens.
Yeah, I don't use any categories. I mean, I literally have 2. I think one is like important account information, and the other one is like newsletters or something. I don't think it's all about like the categorization. I just archive everything. A combination of archive and search is incredibly powerful. And so the way that I do it, it's similar to what I just said. Like I just try to unsubscribe to everything. Try not to have long email threads. If there's like more than 1 or 2 emails going back and forth, and this is from John Halamka, who's a former CIO of Harvard Medical School, or he might still be, but basically more than 1 or 2 emails back and forth, it's like, I'd rather get on the phone and talk about it. So let's schedule some time and talk about it. I try to send really short emails. I don't reply if there's not like an ask of me, just like a quick acknowledgement, and give it the time it needs and deserves. But if too much is coming in, then it might be a problem of overall scope. Like you might just have too much scope.
Maybe Roshni can explain a little bit more about her question. But Roshni is saying, what's your take on the email client Superhuman?
I've never used it.
Well, there you go.
I did see that Gmail started their priority inbox, where they tried to guess like what's important to me and what's not. And I just turned it off. And then I have seen like threaded conversations. I've actually even turned off threading. So I just have every inbox is its own unit. Every email is its own unit that comes to me. I process generally reverse chronologically, like oldest to newest, and go through every single one, get my next action, finish it, and try to have like a 24 to 48 hour SLA on work email. And then John Halamka also talked about keeping like 50% of your calendar open each day. And then Tim Ferriss has talked about the mental overhead of skimming email. And John Halamka has written about only handle something once, which I think is very powerful. So on task management, if someone asks you for something, I would generally say here is an ETA. Like I will get back to you by next week. If it's something I can do on myself, I will schedule the time. I need 2 hours. I'm going to forecast that it takes me 2 hours to get this, to respond to this task. I will make sure my calendar has those 2 hours and it's locked in the calendar. And then I'll respond, okay, I'll get back to you within that time period, always adding buffer. But now sometimes people will say, oh, can you give me something? But it requires coordination across like 5 different teams and 5 different people, but they want to know an ETA from you. In that case, I might say, let me give you an ETA for an ETA. And even before I even commit to an ETA for an ETA, I still want to connect with those 5 people and have each of them schedule the time together to say, we need to spend time together, us 5, even to commit to an ETA for an ETA. So I won't even respond to the email. If I have a dependency to get back to someone, I would want every one of those dependencies committed to even this ETA for an ETA. And the whole idea there is how seriously I take commitments. If I'm going to do something by some time or some day or some moment, if a meeting starts at this time and ends at that time, that's my word, that's my commitment. And my commitment is that I'm going to follow through on my commitment. Like, it's so important to me. And there's a book called Conscious Business by Fred Kaufman. That's a great book about commitments. Also, Charlie Munger wrote an amazing book called Poor Charlie's Almanac that he has a section on commitments as well. Oh, here. So Charlie Munger, be reliable and keep commitments to create a web of deserved trust. If you're unreliable, no matter what your virtues, you'll crater immediately. You'll create a seamless web of deserved trust. And that's kind of what I think about for commitments. And then Fred Kaufman, life is a network of commitments that allows us to get things done collectively. Trust gets built and destroyed based on following through on commitments. It's a big deal to put your word out there and not follow through. And a culture of sloppiness develops when you don't honor commitments. When I say I'm going to get back to you by tomorrow, it's in my calendar. I've scheduled the time, I've allocated the time. I will be getting back to you tomorrow. That's how seriously I take the commitments.
So Nitin, there was a question around procrastination, but that feels like the right response. You know, how do you avoid procrastination? Or where does procrastination, you know, how do you manage it and where does that fit in within your productivity model?
Yeah, there's like an agile concept, like you want to wait until the last responsible moment to do something. I think there's a lot of value, like also high output management. Andy Grove talks about like knowledge work is like inventory, and it can become, what's the word when inventory is held for too long, like it starts degrading in value. So like you don't want to do things so early that the value goes down. But I don't like stress. That's like very foundational for me. So then I like to start really, really early and give myself a tremendous amount of buffer. So like studying for a test, when I was in like undergrad, okay, I finish one test. I know the next test is coming in like 2 months. I'll start studying for the test right away. And so whereas a lot of people, it's like the last 2-3 days, they're cramming, let me try to do it. I'm just coasting. I'm not doing anything the last 2 days because I have been studying, the whole period. So that's kind of how I think about it. Meetings, I would say the most important thing is have an expected outcome. This meeting will be successful if start and end at time, email debrief, capture takeaways. I'm going to get to all the questions, but if people are open to sharing in the chat, from this material, what is something that you will commit to? And we still have 134 of us here on this today. So if you want to type like, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, then we all can kind of commit to each other about, something we might change in our lives based on some of what we've been learning today. And I'm happy to move on to the Slido.
Excellent. We can definitely take it towards the Slido. So if folks want to be continuing to put in questions and continue to add to the chat in the way that Nathan just talked about, where I'm going to take the questions first is around note taking, right? And that goes hand in hand with information overload. Nathan, how do you take notes in a way that it doesn't become information overload? And are there tools that help you with your notes?
So the way I take notes, it's evolved over time, but right now it's mostly in Google Docs. And I just take a lot of notes in the Google Docs. And then I will schedule time to process them so that I know exactly what I'm going, I like to synthesize. So I'll try to figure out, okay, what are my takeaways? What are my actions? What are my next steps? So I'll try to do that as part of my system.
Excellent. And then while we're on the topic of tools, are there tools that help you with your email and your calendar?
Oh, yeah. So the question was like, what tools I use for note taking, anything to help? No,
Yeah.
I just use a Google Doc. It's like literally very, very simple. And no tools on my calendar. I just use, I used to use Google Calendar and now I use the Outlook calendar. It's really, my system is very basic. I'm not saying there isn't value to the tools, but I just like simplicity. And so that's the simplest for me. Kate, are these questions should I do popular?
Yeah, let's go by popular first.
Do you want me to just read through and kind of like rapid fire answer from the top?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. I know that this session was supposed to end at 10. I can stay longer if anyone wants to need it. We have a no meeting day today, so that means I can stay as long as people need, but I get, if people want to leave, whenever.
So what that means though, is Nathan's going through, if there's a question you want him to get to first, make sure that you're going in and upvoting them so that your question's added to the top of the list.
Okay.
So go for it, Nathan.
Good books I'd recommend on personal productivity. In my presentation, I have that. I have it on slide 49. I have a list of the books, and I don't know how here, Kate, I'm just going to put it in, if you can give it, I just put it in our chat. So look at slide 49 of the presentation. Curious to learn how your tools and processes have changed over the last 10 months. Yeah, the biggest change for me has been my schedule. So I used to wake up really early and go into work super early, and then I wouldn't see the kids in the morning, and then I had a long commute, an hour, sometimes hour and a half. I wouldn't see the kids in the afternoon or evenings, and so I would always get home by 6 and always do dinner with them. But most recently have been blocking out 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. to be with kids, and 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. to be with kids. That has been amazing for me because I thought I was going to need to retire to spend that type of quality time with the kids, and I've really appreciated that. The other big changes is I've realized that this topic of personal productivity is like so important. It's like, I think businesses can do a lot to help with the wellness and well-being and health of their teams, and managers have a lot they can do, but individuals, I think it's all about this stuff. this is what you can do yourself to set expectations for everyone around you so that you're taking care of your own self. How to be effective at note taking. I find it hard to take notes when the speakers in the meeting talks quickly. Practice. So sometimes some people, it's like, let me try to take verbatim notes. Others have evolved to be like, let me just get the essence of what I want to capture. What's it like? Wow, that was an important takeaway. So I don't need to capture verbatim. If you can't type that fast, or it's hard to follow a person's speaking so quickly. But at least, like, I've evolved my system where I used to be almost trying verbatim notes and not even thinking about what they're saying. And I'm just going to like read it afterwards so I can process on my own time. But I've gotten to a point now that I can be in a meeting and I kind of already know what my big takeaways are. And now when I'm taking the notes, I'll just take away the big takeaways. Good books I mentioned, I'll just do off the top of my head in case people don't want to go in the slides, would be Getting Things Done is the classic by David Allen, but Deep Work is pretty good.
Nathan, is it okay to direct folks to your newsletter? I personally have really enjoyed Nathan's newsletter. He reads a lot and provides these excellent summaries on some topics that I don't have time to get to on my own. Is it okay that we direct folks there, Nathan?
Yeah, sure. If it's a very ugly landing page and I haven't prioritized the landing page, but Kate, I threw it in the chat too. So if you want to share that with folks, anyone can sign up for that. As a woman PM, there's always fear of missing out. This makes it hard to say no to execs or managers. Any advice? So a few things come to mind. Like, I'm not a woman, so it's hard for me fully to empathize and to really deeply understand what that would be like from that perspective. From my perspective, it is also hard to say no to execs and to managers as well. And what I do is basically what I said, like you know, it seems like the organizational responsibilities is that I prepare a strategy for this, and I operationalize this, and I write this PRD, and I prepare for this all hands, all in the next week. Go to my manager and say, I estimated, and I think I will have time for one in the next week. Like, do you have any feedback? Can you help me prioritize? What is the most important thing? And then another thing is that, to ladder that up a little bit, is like OKR planning. For those of you who don't do OKR planning, I would highly recommend it. Again, I think there's like a 2-hour video somewhere. Google invented this process. And so, but if I find myself over the course of an entire quarter being like, oh gosh, I have way too much going on and I'm overwhelmed the whole quarter, then I probably signed up for too many OKRs. I probably pushed myself too much. So then in the next, and that's objective and key results. So the next quarter, I'll just try to plan my quarter to not sign up for as much. How do you prioritize? Gosh, I lost it. How do you balance personal work goals and productivity? You have an MIT on both every day. The best way I have found for balancing the work and personal is the calendar. So it's like, this is my time for work and this is my time for personal time. And the book, you know, How Will You Measure Your Life is quite good. And one of the things they say about high performing people is at the end of people's lives, most people don't feel like, I wish I would have worked more. So like what I share with my team is like, please prioritize your own health, your own well-being, your own self above and beyond the work. And that becomes like the source of how you can show up in the best way at work as well. With pandemic, we're all working from home. How do you keep yourself focused and away from kind of distractions that come up at home? It's a great question. And I have an unfair response and advantage here. So I know it's different for different people, but for me, I have massively benefited because my wife doesn't work. We have two young kids, and she has carried a massive amount of the childcare responsibility during the day. I mentioned my schedule and how I try to show up. I'll also do lunch, try to do lunch with the kids, but that's the way that I don't get as many interrupts. The other thing that I find hard about work from home is sitting all day and not being around people and that type of thing. And so I will take walking meetings as much. I'm like, can we do a walking? Do you mind if I'm walking? Do you mind if I'm walking? I'll do that like nonstop. I'll also try to get workouts in. So it's like, oh, I have 30 minutes block. I'm gonna try to get a 20-minute run in, like right in the middle of the day. I'll come into the next meeting, maybe like, a little sweaty or whatever, but to keep working out, keep meditating. I wrote a post called The Kindergarten of Vipassana, so I really went on this 10-day meditation retreat that I really enjoyed, and I try to keep that up. So but I think it's going to be different for everyone in your own lives about what works for you. Can you share how you use Clubhouse? I get how you have one-on-one calls and we do this all the time together, but how would you move this to Clubhouse? So I think like the conversation we're having now, like I'm sitting at a desk, I have a formal presentation, which is fine. I don't mind doing it, but like with this group, if I were to organize a ask me anything personal productivity, I think the dialogue that I'm having with myself right now would be a lot more rich, a lot. And then with Clubhouse, you can like select a moderator, you can raise a hand, you can bring the person, you can hear their voice. And so the relationships that I see getting developed on Clubhouse through that voice contact, and then, you can't follow any. Imagine these 100 people, they're so interesting. Everyone here is so interesting. How cool would it be to be able to follow, the other people on that who are there in this community that we've built here? And I think Clubhouse can help there. What advice would you give to a graduate student about how to balance time, prioritize between job hunting, developing skills, or studying? The best proxy I had there is when I graduated from undergrad. When I was in grad school, I knew where I was going to work. And but in undergrad, like it was important to me personally to get good grades. So like that was important. That was my priority for the most part. But then when I had to look for a job, like 3 months before I graduated, 6 months before I graduated, whatever it is, that became my priority. I wrote another post called How I Got My First Valley-Based Product Job in 5 weeks. And when it was my time to look for a job, I can tell you what my MIT was. It was looking for that job. And so I would just really, like literally 5 weeks, I woke up, went to sleep. The only thing I was thinking about was how do I get a job? How do I get a job? How do I get a job? And I laid out a very detailed process on how I did it as part of my part of that post. Really quick, it's almost 10 o'clock. I have a feedback form on this presentation. Kate, if you don't mind posting that so that like if anyone could just give me feedback. I've never presented this material to this many people, so would love feedback. If this chat in here was valuable to folks, then maybe I could like share that in a Google Doc so then people can like see, oh, what are others committing to? Maybe I can learn from that. And then if I'm happy to host future like Ask Me Anythings on personal productivity. As I mentioned, Clubhouse is the fun I've been having recently. So on Clubhouse, so maybe just let me know, post in the the chat or whatever if that's interesting to you. And then anyone, please let me know if I can be helpful. I'm just trying to help as many folks as I can. And Kate already mentioned I have a very modest newsletter, and I sometimes won't send anything for 3 months, but I'll try. Sometimes I'll read a few books and I'll just share my summaries, my notes. I don't mind continuing to just fire away at these questions until I get tired.
Excellent. We've got 2 minutes till the top. So this is a reminder to prioritize the questions you want answered. So if you can like those questions, and thanks for those who need to drop off at the top of the hour. I know I've had a lot of fun listening and learning from Nitin today. I hope you have as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Your time is a gift. And I deeply, deeply appreciate that you all have invested this time so far. So thank you. Maybe I'll stop the recording and then just do the rest of the questions. Kate, does that sound appropriate to you?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. How do I do that? Okay, I can't figure out how to do it easily, so I'm just gonna keep going. Oh, here it is. Stop recording.